Oh, hold on. My bad. Hey, how's it going? It is Nate Mumford once again. We are live, still in quarantine here in Danbury, Connecticut, but now I have my first vaccination dose, which is great. By the way, feel good. Life is great. Can't wait. I got the next one in 3 weeks. All of that. Hey, how are you doing? How's everything on your end? Good. Hopefully you're happy, healthy, safe, all of that. Yes, today we are live once again for RCS Live, as always, every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Today we're going to talk about GSelector research scheduling. This is so cool, an advanced technique for you to implement if you have any research scores or have a consultant that gives you any type of research. This is ways to identify it, and we can talk about some Mediabase, media monitors, those M scores as well, incorporating that metadata, that research into your everyday scheduling. So, of course, I have my chat open over here, as you can see. Good morning, V. How are you doing? Thank you for checking in. So, any questions, comments, concerns, all that good stuff, you can post it right here. I'm, of course, as always, live on YouTube, Twitch, and on our Facebook page. You can always access our archive at rcsworks.com/rcs-live. And also, opening day, let's go Mets, as always. So I thought we should dive right into it. Don't forget, of course, by the way, beta users for Zeta 521.1 and GSelector as well. Don't forget to check your backups too. Research scores. What do I mean by research scores? You may have found this in your GSelector and thought it was just slightly curious. The media monitors and the Mediabase, right? That is kind of licensed by default, and a lot of users will call us up and say, hey, do I have access to Mediabase and media monitors? And if you do, that's phenomenal. It's a great resource to I used to use it all the time as a program director. But what it really does is it gives you access to these two tabs, right? That's what we're doing here, these two tabs. And then from there, there's a login settings screen right here. So what we're doing is essentially defining that you have access to these tabs. And then when we go and use our Mediabase or Media Monitors credentials, we connect the two inside of GSelector. And as I said, Mediabase, Media Monitors, great resources for you. Media Monitors, that M-score, how that song is doing. Mediabase, where it's charting as well. A lot of metadata, a lot of research for you. But when we talk about research, we're also talking about call-outs, talking about essentially consultant research scores, or maybe just it's spring, right? We're going to get ready to wrap up the spring book. And then, of course, summer is all about tweaking and massaging your database. So this is one of those tools you want to incorporate. So if you do get any, let's say your spring call out research, you can implement it into GSelector this summer and, of course, schedule for it in the fall. Or if you have a book every month, that also works for you as well. So as I said, questions, comments, get them in here too. I have my chat open as well. Horacio, how's it doing, man? How you doing? So let's go ahead and break this down. I thought I'd first talk about what we're looking at first, right? So we're in the interface, Mediabase, media monitors, critical mass media, test all media. That's all the four kind of generic research here that we have at RCS. But of course, you can add your own custom research scores as well. So what are we looking at here exactly, right? So very first thing here, obviously the login settings, that's in here. We also have the match song history. This is important because what we want to do is when we create the asset in our environment, we want to make sure we tie it to the actual song as defined by Mediabase or media monitors, right? Very simply put, the example we always give, and you kind of see it here with 2U, but don't fear the Reaper, right? Is it bracket, don't bracket, fear the Reaper, or do you have it as parentheses, don't, parentheses, fear the Reaper? Or do you have no parentheses and have it just don't fear the Reaper all in one? Or for example, pink. I know reporting it's pink exclamation point NK, that type of thing, right? So the idea here is that we want to just essentially match our songs. This is a one-time set it and forget it. And we're going to talk about that in just a few. I'm just breaking down these icons at the very top first. You'll notice, by the way, it's the same icons here on Mediabase as it is here, Media Monitors and Mediabase. Now, we have essentially the last update. That's going to tell us when we have the last research scores. There's a period in there as well where we can get those scores. And we do have overall, we have options to map the scores to the research columns. This is the most important part of this, right? If I have a value of, we'll just keep it simple and call it 10, right? If I have 10, and that could be, it's the 10 on the weekly charts on Mediabase. It could be, it's got an M score of 100, whatever that value is. I really don't care, right? The idea is that I'm taking that numerical value and saving it in within a cell inside the GSelector environment. So where am I saving that value? That's what this window is here. We're mapping the scores to the research columns. So you can see here, I created a brand new one. We can have multiple if you have multiple. And then I just choose whatever that data that I have subscribed to from my, in this case, Mediabase. So you can see these are all the different kind of research scores that I have. And then I have, of course, what is the research? This week, last week, move, last week rank, this week rank. This might be different for you depending on what you subscribe to, right? What we're just pretty much saying is this is the Mediabase, this is the Mediabase kind of research, and this is where it's going. This is the GSelector research column, right? Right, Kai? How's it going? Thanks for checking in. So we can do here is we can essentially say, okay, where is this going inside my environment? This GSelector research column is defined by me, by us, by the user. And now let's talk about how we set this up, right? How do we set this up? That is under setup and then research. And we have a whole bunch of options here: columns, attributes, settings, group, and import. Let's just work our way left to right in this window because it just so happens that's how it's easily designed. Remember, in GSelector, we're not trying to confuse you here. We're trying to put things very easily organized in a row in a linear workflow. That's the idea. So we have here is essentially a bunch of different columns, right? These are essentially the columns to define both inside the library and the editor and the analysis, but also it serves a purpose and how we're going to break down those scores, right? So I have a couple generic ones here. I have Mediabase, hot AC. I got M score, male, female, just some generic columns that I give it based on some research we have, available to us. Now, you notice here on the right-hand side, there's a min score and a max score. So if I double click on this, there's a min score and a max score. A lot of users, you might see this as default in your database. If you have an existing database, it might be something like negative 10,000 and max score of 1,000. The idea here is we're setting that variable for GSelector to know where we're going to put this value, right? So obviously this is a negative 10 to a 10 because that's the scoring range for this particular research score that I'm looking at. But if I put in, let's say, a value of 11, it won't work in this research column because I set a cap at 10. So there's two ways of looking at it. One, I know the exact min and max of my research scores, and I want to do so accordingly. Or I just kind of give it a generic min and a generic max so I know I'm always going to fill within that window. That's what you can see kind of right here, right? The Mediabase hot AC 0 to 10,000, right? Because it will never go anywhere in there. Again, no right or wrong answer. This is just a gap to show GSelector a numerical value of what it's looking for. So after we create these columns, also, by the way, notice if I right click on them, I have that color choice to choose from, just like I would in the goals tab. So what I can do here, after I define a GSelector research column, I can define attributes inside that research column. And you'll notice here, we kind of organize this. This is our demo database, as always. I have kind of a male, neutral, positive, negative, female, positive, neutral, negative, and of course, some M scores in here as well. A bunch of different options based on the research that you're getting, right? So the idea here is we have research scores, and then by assigning attributes to those research scores, guess what? We can then schedule based on those research scores, right? So just using this M score male, it's got a value of 1 to 10. That's by defined here, right? So this is not going to be the min-max we talked about in the previous column. This is going to be essentially, I want to make sure before I forget, are we looking good? We're clear here, right? Kai, we're good? We're not blurry here from last week, right? I want to make sure that before I forget that. So what we can do here is essentially in the previous column, we give the generic min and max, right? In the attribute, we define what we want that attribute to be. So you can see this is the column name here from the dropdown, right? And then this is the attribute itself. So think about it this way: positive, neutral, negative. If I want to say, let's say, maximize my positive M-score males throughout my log, I can do that as defined by here. But what defines a positive score? Anything between 1 and 10, right? Versus if I go to the neutral, it's -1 and 1, which of course is middle of the road or neutral. And then we have a negative, right? Let me double click on the right one here. Yeah. We have the negative, right? -10 to -1. So this could be essentially a way of, okay, don't play a segue band. Don't play a negative male into a negative male based on the research attribute on the research column, M-score male. So you can kind of see how we're filtering down here, getting very specific on what we want GSelector to do. Right, Mark? Right? Makes sense? And let's see here. Satith? Did I say that right, Satith? I'm sorry if I messed it up. My apologies. But makes sense, right? So what we're doing here is we're essentially defining the attribute we care about with the score we care about. So when we actually link the two songs together, we have the appropriate research scores. Okay? So, and oh, by the way, right click, there's your colors. Just so you know, you always know you can change colors with this little define appearance icon here. It's the same thing. All we're doing is just right clicking to save you the trouble. Okay? So we create the column. We define the attributes. We, of course, mention the lowest and highest scores for both. Then we have the settings, right? When do we want to purge research scores? That's up to you. We have this as just 100. I think when I used to keep just none, just so I have my research in there. But obviously, if you have maybe that's 365 or whatever it is, depends how much research you have and how much you care, right? Appearances, I usually keep this attribute and column so I can see both of them in there. This is a display setting throughout GSelector. Again, we usually like to keep this just attribute and column. Don't overthink it. The groups tab over here, this is where we assign what research columns we can see inside the song cart as defined by the profile and the station. Whew, Nate, that was a lot of stuff there. What did you just say? Very, very simply put, when I look at the song, what research do I care about? Very, very similar to that of the browse formats, right? Because if I have, let's say, my classic rock, because again, GSelector is enterprise specific, I can go here and jump to any one of my stations. So obviously, if I'm a classic rock, I might have different research columns and attributes for classic rock than I would, let's say, hot AC. Or if I'm alternative, I might actually share some of those research columns for both stations. So we define those in here, right? Just like the browse format, we have the research groups here. We have the research fields available. We drag it over to the right-hand side, and this is what we get to see inside the song metadata cart, right? Again, just like the browse list, we define it, then we assign it. So the default here is assigned for the RCS hot AC. That's the only big thing there, right? Again, these are set it and forget it settings, right? Set it and forget it. Finally, we have the import. This is going to be if you're doing things by yourself. And the idea here is that we have an import file name. We have a comma or tab delimiter. If you have any questions how to import your own research scores, don't hesitate to reach out to RCS support or email us. We're more than happy to talk about this. The idea, of course, is you essentially take your database, you export it as, let's say, an Excel document. You then add a column for research scores. Your consultant or whoever it is will add those research score values into that column. We then take that file, we import it via here, and then GSelector automatically connects the two, importing all of the metadata, and we're good to go. Again, any questions on this, don't hesitate to reach out to RCS support. It's why we're here. We are here to help you out. Please don't hesitate to call us, and we'll be more than happy to help you there. So we have set this up. We have defined the column. We have defined the attributes. We have defined the settings, groups, and the imports. You can tell I skipped quickly through those three because those are really just set and forget it. You might play around with the attributes, but you're never going to touch these after touching them once, right? So we go back to our interface. I'm going to use Mediabase for right now because the Media Monitors has some stations tied to it, obviously. It's whatever research you're paying for. We've already done the login. We've confirmed we're logged in. We're good to go. This is an old existing one here. That's fine. But we essentially established the map scores, the research columns. Now look over here. Remember those columns that we defined? Remember when we said that they're organized based on stations? Who gets to see what columns? That's right here. So we have essentially a Mediabase hot AC, and I can then define what's the format I care about, right? So we'll just say top 40 because I know I got numbers there. And then I have, of course, the score, right? So the column here, last week, this week, move, ranks. This, again, is whatever you subscribe to. So I have a lot of options because obviously we're associated with Mediabase and Media Monitors. But if you're not, that's totally fine. You're going to find exactly what you pay for right there. Just very, very simple. And oh, and by the way, you can always add additional ones too. So if you have, let's say, multiple research, you can put those in here if you wanted to. Otherwise, I'm just going to delete that and maintain my single one. Okay, now here's the fun stuff. Let's get these scores. We're going to connect to everything, bring it up. Boop, 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 boop. A lot of population going on here. We're essentially grabbing all of that research from all those scores, and we're essentially defining a match relationship between the songs in our database and the songs as per defined in the format top 40 inside of Mediabase. Now, again, I don't put research in a lot here because it's a demo database. You're going to see a lot of unrecognized songs. When you first do this, give yourself like 15 minutes because what you want to do is make sure that the metadata in your library matches that as the official song and title of those elements. Now, let's look at what we're looking at here, right? So there's a couple things. We have show unrecognized songs, show matched songs, show previously matched songs, and show all songs. Let's just keep it simple. Show match songs, right? When you do this the first time, you're going to match these up. And guess what? Once they're matched up, you're totally fine. It's going to be in there. You're not going to worry about it. This window becomes I need to get research. I'm going to get my scores. I'm going to save it. I'm going to move on, right? The very first setup does take a little bit of just kind of making sure that everything is lining up correctly. So you can see here, I have just Dean Lewis Be All Right. So matched, yes, title, artist, research date. This week in top 40. Is it referenced? It is. There is my title, artist, and of course a little media ID there of what I'm referencing in my database. Make an important note, by the way, of this active. Remember, the blue circle is active. The orange square is inactive. Make a note of that. If you have multiple versions of a song, it might find the inactive version because you have mislabeled it from what the actual record label defined publisher songwriting is, right? Again, you do this once. Once you match a song and match a relationship, we have that. It's in here. It's done. It's locked. You will not have to do it again, okay? Just so we're on the same page here. So going to show unrecognized songs, right? These are songs that we haven't seen. Sorry. Let's go to all songs here. Let's find some stuff here. Come on. It's fine. I'll just show you here. For example, what you want to do is click on these three dots, right? Yeah, I'm going to hit no on there. Yep. Okay. I know what you did there. Let's go back here to the Mediabase. Let's pull these scores back in. And what we want to do here is I never actually saved this work. It's a very important thing to note. I never actually saved these elements. I'm essentially grabbing the data. I'm looking at the matching. If I don't have it, if I have it, that's fine. It's not until I hit the save on the very top right that I'm actually making that connection between these two elements. So again, for matching them right here, all we do here is click those three dots. That's going to give us essentially the advanced search, right? This is going to show you exactly how to match up the songs. Me personally, when I first like to match on research scores, I usually look for the title or the artist that is weird. Again, using that pink reference, right? You might see something like P exclamation point NK. I might know that the artist could be weird. In that case, I might delete the artist. Or, for example, Don't Fear the Reaper. So many parentheses, so many brackets, don't know what it is. I might get rid of the title in that circumstance and keep the artist and find the element here. This find songs window is your advanced search. That's all it is. We're just finding the song in the enterprise environment. We are double clicking to match on it. Once we find it and select it, we're going to have that matched relationship as we define it here. And boom, we're good to go, right? Any questions on that? Mark, Kai, makes sense? So what you want to do here is that's your normal go-to. If you have Mediabase, Media Monitors, M-scores, and by the way, you can also reach out to your RCS sales rep or support or whomever. We can get you in touch with Mediabase and Media Monitors if you want to get some more of that great research. They're phenomenal assets and resources for you as a programmer, just so you know. So yeah, I'm not going to save my changes here. I'm just going to cancel it for right now because I don't need to put it in there. But let's go back to our library and let's pretend for a second that, okay, you don't have any corporate research, but you have a consultant call out, right? So maybe once a book, you essentially grab all your songs, you export them. And by the way, that's very easy. Just interface, export. We can do songs here or an XML. Anything you want to do. It's very, very easy to export your library from GSelector. At that point in time, we export it. We send it to our consultant. They have our spreadsheet. They put in all the scores we want. And this could be whatever kind of movement that you see, that you do. It's all your research at the end of the day, right? It's what you care about. At that point in time, let's just say we have a call out from whatever source it is. Don't forget, we can always ingest Excel files. But if you have, let's say, just a couple here, a couple there, whatever it may be, we do have a manual option for putting in research scores. So I'm going to double click on this Justin Bieber song, and you'll notice I have down here in the very bottom, I got the song history. This is just a hold category song I picked here. But notice the research groups right here. Aha. Notice that I have that same column over here. Aha, right? You can see how we're identifying in that setup and research columns, how that same piece of information is being brought across the board, right? So on this one, what I did is this has a score of what, like -10 to 10. So I just put in, in January it was 1, then it was 3, then it was 6, then it was 9, right? That's all it was. So what I can do here, I'm just going to jump. There's a really cool song trek here that we can actually look at this charting of this song, right? So let's just say you're doing some of your spring cleaning in your database, looking at those goals and see exactly where is this thing trending high, trending low? Is it kind of bounced back and forth? Is it a spring summer song versus a fall song? Top 40 formats, hot ACs. Obviously, throw in those fun summer songs. Now there's time to look at maybe look at the trends. And maybe you knew from last year, right? I just have the date here on the 21, but you can go ahead in this research and apply a different year. You can look at the song track and see, ooh, based on my Media Monitors M score, I know this song is always trending very high during the summer months, whereas the winter months, it doesn't. I can see it in the graph. I can fluctuate it. If you want to go really crazy, we have tons of graphs here for you, right? Go to town. Different attributes here too, as well. So what I can do here is track this and see what it's doing. Then, of course, making my schedule changes. Once I define and I ingest those research scores, those research attributes, you will find them here on this tab right here. Research attributes are defined right there. Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering, that reference we talked about earlier, Mediabase, boom. There's my reference number as well. That's where we store the metadata to make sure that when you ingest your research, it's always locked full time. If you ever have to change that, you can change it. Just so you know, there's a manual way in the system to change that setting. I won't show you, but of course, what was that? Our RCS support. You want to call support and they'll tell you exactly where it is. There you go. So just know you can adjust it if you wanted to. All right. So we essentially on this particular one, we assign the research scores. That's on here. We have the research attributes, the song track, that's in there as well. And now we're operating inside this environment, right? We have all the research ingested. We have the manual research ingested. These are things I care about. Well, if you care about it, guess what? Let's put it in the log itself, right? I go down here, it's right click, modify column. What did I say it was? You can see there's hot AC negatives, neutral positives. Those are those research scores we talked about. There's some Mediabase hot ACs in here as well. I can drag that Mediabase hot AC, put it in the column, whatever that attributes are in there, we can see that too. Of course, I didn't connect the two right now, but if I did, you'd see all those values right there inside these values here. I will say, I have had a lot of programmers get very tricked up on this, right? Go to your setup, go to your research, look at your columns. There's a couple users I've found that essentially mislabel things, right? There'll be a M-score male, and then that's available for, let's say, the classic rock station, and then there's an M-score male with like maybe it's M-score underscore male, whatever it is, and that's available to the top 40 station. And when they go to grab it, they're grabbing the wrong one. So if you ever go in there and add that column, you don't see anything, you're like, something is off, right? Double check here, setup, research, columns. Just make sure you're choosing the right one. If you notice, by the way, remember how earlier I was like, these are the columns, these are the attributes, this is settings group support. That's because you might come back to these two just to make sure you have the right values and the right attributes, right? I'm never going to steer you in the wrong direction in these videos. Trust me, I'm going to get you to where you need to be. If it's not that important, you're going to feel that's not that important. If it's set it and forget it, I'm going to tell you, set it, forget it. Use your mental resources to more day-to-day operations. So, of course, I can right-click on here, modify columns, find all my research scores, research attributes in here, and I can include that metadata so visually I can see it. But also, I can go to my goals here. I can go to my balance, go to my attributes, and oh, look at that, research attributes. So once I assign these, right? Again, I have nothing assigned right now, but once I assign these, I can then, once again, right-click on the research attribute, but I know exactly what's going on. In addition, I can click my rotation rules window, and I can define my research attributes in here as well. I have my spread goals. I have my rules. They're in here, right? I can go to my actual goals and priorities. I can hit the plus here, and I can go and find my research scores in here as well. So there's a lot of options like spread research, right? Right there, spread research attribute. Or again, the rules in the mix as well. And like Kai says, if you have any other questions, if only there was an RCS support person 24/7 to answer your questions, right? I know, a lot of stuff here, but a lot of really powerful tools. If you get any research, any type of integrated M-score from Media Monitors or Mediabase, incorporate that into your schedule. At minimum, you can make it a goal and just kind of that better music log. Remember, you always hear me say this. How does GSelector build a better music log? We give you hundreds of tools to implement into the schedule. Again, the goal and rule-based scheduling. Do this, do this, do this, but don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Go into your segue bands and say that, don't do this. Don't play a low-scoring song next to a low-scoring song. Go to your goals, balance, attributes. Go to your research attribute here and essentially say, maybe there's a min sep, right? Or max per hour on that particular attribute. Maybe the average turnover for a low testing song is every 3 hours. Well, you can say, give me a min sep of 3 hours because I don't want you to play anything more than that, right? So there's a lot of, once you establish the columns, when you establish the attributes, you ingest the actual research. And don't forget, that includes manual research too. Just double click on a song, research groups, put these in here. That's why I picked the wrong one. It was M-score hot AC. Let me just kind of go back here and show you exactly. Modify columns, M-score hot AC, right? I think that's what it was. And it will do, I'll figure that out. It'll display the proper column in there, just so you know. It's the most recent one. So it's going to play here. The 9 is going to display on there when I can connect the 2, right? So very, very cool stuff in there. Research columns. If you have any questions at all, let me know. I'll do last call for questions here. So Tiff, James, Mark, any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will sign off. Yes, I know John was supposed to be in the call today. He had some scheduling conflicts. He'll be back on the 22nd of April. So pay attention for that coming down the pipeline. Other great videos, of course, as always, rcsworks.com/RCS-live, or just go to our blog section, rcsworks.com, and the blog, and we can go from there. Let's see, Kai. Kai's got a question here. I'm reading here. Let's see here, Kai. So Kai's question was, any ideas the best way of doing this? I want to make sure that if GSelector schedules a power or branded intro, it will drop the sweeper that plays before it. The branded and power intro songs are mixed in the normal playlist, so I can't do anything funky, right? Awesome question, Kai. That is our related links. Linker related links, right? The idea here that I can essentially define a relationship. When I play this type of song, I'm going to play this type of sweeper. How you define that relationship is up to you. But you were saying a power, right? If it was me, as you know, I love control. I like isolating things and defining things. So for me, I would take a power attribute, probably under station content or something. I can isolate it. I can only assign it to those powers I care about. Because let's be honest, if your A's are your powers, there's always that one A that's trending high. There's that one A that's trending low. Think of driver's license, right? That is a huge, 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 huge power. But you might have another song in that same exact category that is not as on the same playing field as that. So if I just pick my A and power and then choose, let's say, the link, and I can do a specific link, like, whatever it may be, I could do that, but obviously there might be some little fluctuations. I really want to make that a thing. Or I simply go by, my title, for example, right? When I play the song Believer, I want to play the specific link, like, I am Believer, whatever it is. That's also an option, Kai, too. So that's what I do for there. Again, linker, related links, fly-in, or clock. The fly-ins are in addition to the scheduling process as defined by the clocks. So this will fly it in addition to the schedule. If you don't want to have two sweepers back to back, you don't want two sweepers back to back. That's usually the kind of normal here thing. We gave this all these settings. Me personally, only replace it. I leave specific links alone because usually those are like kind of specialty branding things. But replace options, only replace. And what I do here is I check everything off. But what I do is I leave, if there's a top of the hour in this category, I leave the top of the hour alone because obviously we don't want to affect the FCC and license and stuff like that. So I'm telling GSelector, only replace this piece of imaging because I want you to do this. But when you're replacing it, don't replace the top of the hours, replace everything else, right? Really cool stuff, Kai. Definitely play around with this. And of course, if any questions on this, if only there was a F1 dynamic help to show you what is going on in this window. Read up on this. This is a really, really cool thing. I highly encourage users to do fly-in links. It's a great, great resource. As I said, we give you all these ways to have a better music log in GSelector. We want to show you how to do things because if you don't know how to do it, if no one showed you how to do it, how do you know how to do it in the first place, right? Cool. Last call for questions, Kai. Hopefully that answered your question. And for all those who are just curious, I'm going to stall for time here. That was Kai's question over there, looking to essentially schedule power or branded intros over sweepers. The branded and power intro songs are mixed in the normal playlist, all of that stuff. So, and as Kai said, time for that F1 help guide or a course guide. Just call and support. As you know, we're going to help you out there too. So, last call for questions. Going once, going twice. I will see you next Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. As always, I am Nate. This is RCS Live. Have a fantastic weekend. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.